Welcome to the American Med Spa Association podcast, Medical Spa Insider. This week, AmSpa founder Alex Thiersch is speaking with Lowinn Kibbey, North American president of Cynosure Lutronic.
Okay, welcome everybody. This is Alex Thiersch, and welcome to the program. We have Lowinn Kibbey, president of North America of Cynosure Lutronic. I will not tell everybody, Lowinn, how you told me to remember your name, but it is awfully funny, and I don't believe for a second that you are low intelligence, although that was pretty funny. But president of North America, Cynosure Lutronic, we are coming to you. It is like middle of April. We just got back from Medical Spa Show, and for all of you who were there, thank you so much for coming. It was a wild and crazy time, but a really good educational experience. Lots of really good topics that we covered, which we're going to get into a little bit here. And I think it's great to have you on, Lowinn, from Cynosure Lutronic, which, you know, for those of you who don't know, and many of you, most of you probably do, that is obviously a very big energy device, another type of device company that has been around for a very long time, that has recently merged Cynosure and Lutronic together. And you know, I have always been a big fan of both companies. We've had Cynosure on a number of times in the past, and to have both of you kind of combined, I think is a cool, because you certainly have a huge kind of wide swath of products. But before we get started, Lowinn, I mean, you are, as president of North America, you are kind of in charge of right now this kind of massive conglomeration of these two businesses. Talk about what's been going on for the past year since this merger happened, and how the impact's been, and just what your journey's been.
Great. Yeah, Alex, thank you. Thank you for having us here, and looking forward to having a great conversation. So the official 1-year anniversary of this merger between Cynosure and Lutronic was April of this year. Yeah. So we've been at it now for about a year. What happened is private equity purchased Lutronic, and then they purchased Cynosure. And so it's sort of a roll up, like we see in the med spa world, right? It's a roll up of two energy-based device companies. The really powerful and cool thing about this merger is, number one, it creates the largest global player in energy-based devices, which is that, you know, scale is important, but it combines really good strengths, right? So Lutronic, really high quality, great innovation, very dependable technology. Cynosure, great history in the category with products as well, but a lot of strength in the commercial side, marketing, services, clinical training, sales. So you're combining sort of the best of both worlds in an industry that probably will continue to consolidate, being the first, having first mover advantage and getting sort of the best of both worlds together creates a really unique company. And does this pretty much give you, I mean, you must have pretty much the whole suite of products for like a med spa. I mean, there's nothing that you really can't offer when it comes to the energy devices. We have, really 30 plus technologies. And yes, we can do everything from hair removal, hair growth, skin, texture, tightening, pigment, and body, right? So we have the whole portfolio. Part of the merger, though, as you can imagine, is to simplify, right? Where you focus is how you grow. We really want to focus on hair and skin. We have a bit of body that we're retaining, because with GLP-1s, muscle tone is really important. So we're really looking at body through a different lens. So very, very exciting in our approach. So our CEO is Nadav Tomer. And our approach has really been one globally of move very fast in a merger. I've been in small companies and large companies, and one of the things that can really hurt a company as it merges is if it focuses inward and goes slow. If you truly focus on the customer, which means revenue, but if you focus on and take care of the customer and you move as fast as possible, you're going to hit some speed bumps and some potholes. But if you hit potholes at 70 miles an hour, it's less jarring than if you hit them at 10, right? So we just move very, very quickly. And within 12 months, we've done probably 90% of this merger. Back office, integration, systems, all that. Not all the way done. We've got some amazing human beings still, keeping some things duct taped together. But if you're a customer, we would hope that the amount of discontinuity you might have experienced was incredibly minimal. So we moved very, very quickly. And I'm very proud of our 1,000 employees for the work they've done.
Yeah. That's an interesting way to put it, the pothole at 70 miles an hour, because you're right. I mean, speed is important, but you have to do it well, right? You have to make sure you're doing it well. And we have, obviously, you mentioned before, we have roll-ups in this industry. We're starting to see them more and more.
Yep.
But the scale with which we're seeing them is minuscule compared to what you were looking at. I'm trying to wrap my head around what the integration of those two companies must be like. It must I mean, putting aside the management side, like trying to put all that together, you're talking about all of the products, the manufacturing, the warranties, the servicing, sales, all of that is just it is just a mammoth project. Are you still pretty divided as far as the two segments go, or are you completely, like, when you have sales, you've got both of them right in the same category?
Yeah, it's in North America, especially day one. And it may have been a little bit ambitious, but day one, we said one bag, one team. Now, then you work through it, right? So then you got to make sure that if you have a district, let's say the team in Texas, right? They got to get familiar. It's one team. They got to get familiar with each other. They got to get familiar with all the technology they have. We have to be clear about what's going to be in the bag, because we do want to simplify. What are we going to focus on? But we literally went to that day one. We spent a lot of time training. A big part of that is getting our clinical team up to speed on technology maybe they hadn't, trained on before. Our service team. And we have the largest clinical training team in North America, the largest service team. Our clinical and service individuals are just amazing. I mean, they love to take care of the customer. They love to do what they do. A great field service engineer loves to open a box and get in there with wrenches. So they really enjoyed having more toys to play with and work on. And then from a clinical perspective, same thing. So it was a ton of work. A lot of his stuff you don't see, right? It's ERP systems. Right. It's guidelines by country about what you're going to do. But again, we worked through it very, very quickly with the sole intent of, we didn't want our customer to have to sit around and wait 18 months until we were focused on them. And I've seen it go the other way, where everyone's worried about their title and their role, as opposed to is the customer getting their product? Yeah.
Huh? That's amazing. Now, the big question that I'm sure you're asked all the time is, why did Cynosure go first and Lutronic second in the name? Or was there like an arm wrestling contest about that? Or was it just alphabetical?
It was literally what sounded, the easiest to say. Yeah. So that was it. Yeah. And we have in some countries a portfolio that was maybe more highly as a share Cynosure, and others were as higher Lutronic, but it was a really good blend. Cynosure had a very strong presence in North America, but Lutronic has a very strong presence in Europe, and the synergy was really, really powerful.
That's awesome. So we were chatting before we hit record, and you were formerly with Johnson & Johnson, and obviously, the level of President of North America of this company, this is a ginormous company, worldwide company, and but coming from Johnson & Johnson into Cynosure, which does a lot of things. One segment is aesthetics, and we were kind of talking about how, number one, aesthetics is different, and kind of where the aesthetic industry is right now in its overall path, because it's been a little choppy over the past 18 months, 2 years. And we've been used to this kind of incredible growth, and it still is growing, but there's for the first time, we've had folks who maybe haven't done as well as they had wanted to do over a particular year. So and I want to get into that, but before we do, just generally talking about when you've come into aesthetics from a company like Johnson & Johnson, what's your initial impression of like the med spa and aesthetic space? Because it is such a different category, and it's so unique that I always, whenever I speak with folks, that's the first thing I'm telling them is, like, you've got to just brace yourself. This is a very different, unique space, and you can't treat it like other things because it's not like that. Is that the impression that you got too?
100%.
That's awesome.
And there are other industries out there. So, I started off as a chemical engineer in R&D, and I've been through a couple different companies. And one of the things I've seen that can go wrong in running businesses or seen leaders do potentially not correct is they move from one sector to another and they say, well, this is going to be just like where I came from.
Right.
And here's, maybe you come from pharmaceuticals and you roll into medical device and you're like, well, we're going to run medical device like a pharma company. Well, that can be potentially very difficult. Or you go from medical device to consumer, right? And then you try to run a consumer business like medical device or vice versa. And so, one of the key tenets, I think, to understand aesthetics is to recognize it's not like anything else and to come in here and hope that it's going to operate like a traditional medical device company,
right.
or medical device category is not the case. There, the other parts of the beauty of aesthetics is it's very visceral, it's high intensity, it moves, it's highly kinetic, right? And so I think that's, whether you want to look at businesses as like, ice, water, and steam, like aesthetics is more steam. It's highly kinetic, which is very exciting. It's cash pay. Those dynamics, are not going to change. Consumers or patients coming to an office wanting to gain confidence with how they look. And when they get that little win or a big win, it's transformational. It can be transformational in how their marriage works. It can be transformational in how they look at themselves in the mirror after having a baby and they have melasma, and they don't want this little baby to see them this way. They don't think it's their authentic true self. And being able to go to a med spa or a derm or whatever that is and have that address, it's transformational emotionally. That's a powerful industry to be in. And so, we talked about like, this is Mars, it's not Earth, and that's okay, right? So it's different weather systems, it's different gravity, and you just got to know that. And if you pretend it's Earth, you're not going to survive. And I think with Cynosure Lutronic, we want to be a highly respected and trusted adult in this aesthetics category. And, there's a lot of history of different companies doing various things, right? And our goal is to really focus forward to be the trusted partner for a customer that delivers safety and efficacy. And we do that through great clinical training, great post-office, support, things like that. And so we love this planet that we're on. We love the aesthetic space, and we know how we want to behave and that we want to be trusted.
God, you know what? You said you want to be an adult, and that is a great way to put it. And sometimes I feel like in this business, we need a few more adults in the room. Not because, aesthetics is not professional or serious or patient driven, but it is, it is kinetic. And because it's growing so quickly, you get a lot of flash, and you get a lot of people who are coming in and building things and doing things that are different and quote unquote innovative. And that can be fun and great, but it can also, move faster than regulation, and it can move faster than maybe sometimes you'd like. And so one of the things that we found this past week at the medical spa show was, I think that there is a desire from a lot of people in the industry, and a lot, by that I mean overwhelming majority of people, for us to all be a little more adult with how we kind of behave. Not that we're not adults, it's just that, like, this is serious. And with things that have been happening, I think we're starting to see what happens when you don't act like that all the time. You get treated like like you're acting. So that's really good to see. And I think where you're coming from, your background, and the fact that you've been around for as long as Lutronic and Cynosure has, I think is really, really important for that. Talk just kind of the industry in general. When you look at aesthetics and med spas, do you see the same kind of thing? Like, do you feel like there's a need for a little more maturity sometimes, and a little more, I don't know, just a little more seriousness with things, or is that, am I overstating that?
So, I would, maybe I'll flip it around the other way to say is, I think it's critical. I'll look through the lens of our customer for a minute, right? And then I'll talk about our accountability as a manufacturer and a partner. So I think for med spas, it's so important to know who you are, what you stand for, and deliver on that with discipline, right? it's one thing to have, this one day brand session with a creative agency or your digital partner. It's another thing to make sure your staff understands it, everyone buys into it, and the customer would walk out the door and say, this is who you are, and it matches. Right. And so, one of the things we've done over the last year or so is we've converted about 30% of our sales force into post-sales support, which has been tried from time to time by various companies.
Yeah.
But our practice development consultants, the very first question they're going to ask a new customer is, who are you? What do you stand for?
Mm-hmm.
We're going to start there. Do we have amazing technology that we want that customer to adopt? Absolutely. Is Ultra an absolutely incredible device, genius, RF microneedling, Pico Pro? We have an amazing portfolio, but it's got to start with, who are you? How do you want to differentiate yourself? And then, where are you at in your process of creating an in-office process that moves your patient through an experience that communicates that value? And then, extracts the value, right? Has the patient pay you and be delighted with the value in exchange that they've exchanged their money for. So that's the number one job of our practice development consultants. And we believe that if we can have a meaningful conversation, if we can deliver on what that practice wants, we're going to be able to sell devices.
Right.
And then we got to come and clinically train and all those various things like that. So I think when you talk about, is the industry needing to mature? I think there's, I certainly wouldn't say that it's immature. I would just say the discipline, when you are in a highly kinetic environment, you got a lot of tailwinds. It's easy to win and to make the money you want to make. When it starts to get tough, which, maybe over the last 12 or 18 months, it's been a little bit more tough. That's when knowing who you are, having the discipline and metrics in place in your office, it really matters.
Yeah. Is that what you're seeing right now as far as who's doing well and who's maybe not doing as well as they should? Is it discipline and metrics, and is that the main thing, or are there other things as well that you're seeing?
Yep. I think it's a discipline and metrics, but the first thing is, who are we and how are we different?
Okay.
If you're not differentiated, I think you would probably know a little bit better than me. Let's say there's 12,000 med spas in North America today, 1,000 new every year, approximately, since 2017, right? Mm-hmm. Approximately.
Right. Yep.
So with that, you need to really know who you are. And there's so many different ways to differentiate. Holistic wellness positioning. You could be just, bare bones laser hair removal. You could be there's a lot of different ways to do it. But once you've made your choice, for all of us, there's so many distractions and exciting things. The discipline and the metrics that make sure you're tying back to who you said you're going to be is critical.
Hey folks, Alex Thiersch here, and I wanted to give a quick shout out to our friends at MedShift for sponsoring this podcast. Are you tired of juggling multiple vendors for your aesthetic practice? Say hello to MedShift. It's your convenient one-stop shop for everything that your practice needs to thrive. From injectables, medical supplies, hands-on training, and cutting-edge devices, to weight loss and wellness solutions, medical-grade skincare, and even exosomes, it's all at your fingertips. MedShift is focused on empowering your growth. It streamlines purchasing and offers dedicated support to unlock new revenue streams that will make your practice more profitable. Visit store.medshift.com and make the shift today. That's store.medshift.com. Thanks so much. It's so difficult, and it's so easy to get distracted, especially in this environment with all the new things, all the new shiny toys, all the things people are talking about, new treatments. I mean, goodness, we were talking about GLP-1s as well. It's like those, there was an article just came out today or the other day about, an oral GLP-1 pill that could potentially be a game changer. I mean, it's so easy to get distracted, as opposed to kind of sticking to who you are and really being who you are. I think that's an important point. And let's talk a little bit about, and I think this ties directly into that, training too, because another issue we spoke a lot about was training, and what is the role of industry as far as training medical providers. And one of the things we're struggling with, and I think this is incumbent on all of us to take responsibility for, and mostly it's the med spas and the providers to say, some folks shouldn't be doing things that they're currently doing, or we need to figure out who should be doing what. We should all agree on that particular standard, and we should stick to it. But I did get this from a few folks last week was, X and X injectable company just trains everybody. What's their responsibility? It's like, well, I think all of those are good questions. When it comes to training, what's your approach to that? Because I know you have always been big on training, and I feel like Cynosure. I have more experience with Cynosure than Lutronic, but you've always been very, very professional when it comes to training and post sales service. But talk about what your training program is like, and what we should be looking at as far as how we think about training moving forward in this environment.
Yeah. So let's just walk through, like, in a similar vein to what we talked about. Who are we in the discipline? We approach that through the clinical lens. So we want to be partner of choice, right? And that is for innovation, bringing great technology to office, and making sure that innovation is safe and efficacious. And there's a balance there, right? So, we are, I wouldn't tell you that we have a stance on how training should go for injectables or anything like that. Sure. That's none of my business. But for our devices, if you're buying our technology, it is critical that you have access to make sure day one, you are comfortable with how this technology works. And Alex, I think we're good at it, and I think there's opportunity to become exceptional, right? So I think we're best in class. We measure sort of net promoter score, so we're best in class in the industry, but I think there's room to get better. And I would tell any of your listeners there that, that's our goal. So if they've ever had an experience they don't like, let us know, and we want to make better on it. But the training in office is critical. You and I spoke about it earlier, even now for like our laser hair removal device, Clarity 2, which is phenomenal technology, right? Great laser hair removal, high speed, and then you can do skin rejuvenation, you can do vascular. So great way to make money, three-legged stool of revenue, but you got to know how to use it safely. So now we've talked about the three-legged stools, but we need to make sure you know how to use it for each of those. So there's 2 days of training that comes when you buy our technology on your basic, on Clarity 2, right? So we also now we're experimenting with advanced clinical training offsites. So, we do events like many in the industry do, and that is to do some training. It's also to help people understand who we are and have access to our technology. But then beyond that, we're doing advanced clinical training forums to bring in customers within different zip codes. And it's really just to focus on clinical training. It's not about selling technology. So we're experimenting with how do we expand that in a way where people can come in and hear from each other. Because it's one thing to train in your office. It's another to be around other customers who are experimenting with it, playing with it, and asking questions. So in addition to, if you buy a technology, you're going to get live clinical training within a week or two of the device being installed. It could be 1 day, it could be 2 days. And then we have every week, we have live training that happens at night if you want to call in and get some questions answered about your technology. We have recorded library that you can have access to have, you can lay in bed and learn a little bit more about your technology. So we just want to surround our customer with every possible tool so they feel great about the technology. And then the benefit of that, if they're crushing it with that technology, if their patients are happy, then they're going to want to come back to us, right? And they're going to want that next device. But it all starts with safety and efficacy.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it does. It absolutely does. I'm curious, what are you most excited about looking at, and you can take your pick, looking at Cynosure Lutronic itself or looking at the industry? What kind of, looking forward to, I feel like we're in a little bit of an inflection point because it's a little choppy right now, but I think, the cream always rises to the top. There's always going to be, these ups and downs. What are you looking forward to? What do you think, what does the future hold?
So let's talk about the category first, and then I'll talk about Cynosure Lutronic. Yeah. I think in the category, we have the 4 dimensions of growth. I call it, right? You got rejuvenation. Everyone knows the demographics globally are aging. Got it. Prejuvenation. So more and more of the under 35 are coming in, which is great. You also have skin of color. So, the reality is that 90% of clinical research, 80% of patients are, Fitzpatrick 1 or 2. The rest of the world doesn't look like you or me.
Right.
And there's a huge opportunity, Hispanic community, Southeast Asian community. So all that is wide open.
Right.
And then the fourth, which is very small, but is compounding at probably 20, 30% a year, is men. Hair growth, right? And that's today, it may only be 11, 12% a category, but if it's, 20, 25% 3 or 4 years from now, that's huge growth for med spas. So there are very few categories, I believe, globally that have these kind of tailwinds. It's incredible.
Yeah.
And I think right now basket size is decreasing, but foot traffic is still there. So people are coming in, they're just they're being a little bit more choosy about what they're buying at that moment. Which goes back to the practice really needs to know who they are, how they're serving their customer, and maximizing value.
Now, real quick in that though, because I want to talk about men, because I feel the same way, but at the same time, I feel like for the past 5 years, I've been like, men are, the wave of men being in med spas are coming. And it tends to still hover around that 10, 11% of the total market share come from men. I do think, with hair removal and some of the treatments, I think that it increases that. What do you see as being treatments that are going to draw men in on the one hand? And then to double up on that, if you do have, using your example of who you are and do that with discipline, how do you include men in that if you're really focusing on one thing?
So there's a couple different ways. One is you could decide that I'm going to be a med spa for men.
Right.
Yep. And then you could say, well, it's a small percent. Yeah. But if you're getting, 11%, you're focused on that 11% in Dallas, that's a lot of people. And if they walk in and they're like, this is a really cool environment, I feel like it's built for me. That's a differentiated approach. Another could be like, we're really going to serve women and the men they love. And so then you create a referral plan to get their partners in. Right. So it just depends upon how you want to go at it. And there's probably 6 other smarter ways, right, to think about how you bring men in. But it's coming, right? And you see, all you have to do is walk into Target or Walgreens and look at the beard section, and there's like 17 different kinds of beard oils. And it just like it's proliferated in terms of how men think about their hair, their beard, how they smell, what clothes they wear, right? So I think that's foreshadowing what is going to come into more invasive. And I think GLP-1s, which are going to drive more women in as well, but it's certainly going to drive men in. We're going to start to look at their submental and other, serious skin laxity issues, and going to want to address that because they're going to be even more focused on their appearance.
Yeah. So then, I'm sorry, I cut you off. Talk about what you're excited about as far as Cynosure Lutronic.
Yeah. So I think when you think about those 4 wins, which aren't going to go away,
right?
That's next to artificial intelligence. I can't think of another category that has this many tailwinds. They're just going to keep growing. So the question is, how do we position ourselves to be able to win there? And I love our portfolio. We can do everything from tone, texture, and tightening. We have, melasma clearance on Pico Pro. We can do really, really low downtime, amazing glow treatments like with Ultra. We can do, deep RF microneedling with Genius. We can do body with AccuFit, to make sure that you're retaining muscle tone as you're on the GLP-1, so your metabolism stays up. Like, we've got this amazing portfolio, and we're doing a lot of really good clinical research on skin of color. So we have a very high confidence that when we tell a customer, you can use this on fits 4, 5, and 6, you can. And here's a way to do that. Here's how to use Pico Pro to do that, or Hollywood Spectra, or Ultra. So we feel that we are very well positioned to take advantage of all of these, including, we're excited about like Ultra with hair growth for men or women, right? So when we think about how this category is going to grow, and we think about how to take our 30 portfolio down to the core, 7 to 10, we're really focused on making sure we can capture the maximum amount of opportunity there. And there's really no competitor that has the ability to capture all of that revenue for a practice like we can.
Yeah. No, it's exciting. And I agree. I think the tailwinds and the I always tell folks, we're still very much on the ground floor of where this is going to go. And when you look
Yep.
at where the population is right now and what it's going to look like in 10 years, I think the sky's the limit. Same question. I always ask this to folks too. What is there anything that makes you kind of nervous about the industry? Like what are the things that keep you up at night, if anything?
Yeah, I think the number one thing would be what you mentioned earlier, which is just in this highly kinetic environment, making sure that we don't have a situation where, make sure we don't have a situation where the something really detrimental happens.
Right. Yeah.
Right. If this category isn't growing really healthily in 10 years, it's because we haven't done something right. Right.
Yeah.
And let's look at the energy-based device companies. If we as manufacturers aren't respected, it's our own fault, right? If we're not behaving like adults and taking care of our customers in the right way, right? It's on us. And so in aesthetics, I think the biggest concern would be that we're not balancing legitimate science and efficacy and safety with efficacy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you're right. I couldn't agree more. It's good to hear you say that. I think we need to have this as a topic of discussion amongst all of us. I think we just all need to be talking about it more. So it's great to hear you say that. Anything else coming out in the future? You guys got any launches or anything big like
Yeah.
you're going to be doing?
Yeah, we have a new device that was just announced in Canada that was approved by Health Canada. It'll be coming to the U.S. We're hoping for approval shortly after this, but it's called ZERF. It's monopolar RF, and it's a really a game changer versus maybe what historically has been out there with some other folks. So we're very, very excited about being able to get to deeper tightening in the skin without needing numbing. So very, very excited about this technology called ZERF. So certainly look for that.
So not as painful as what you're saying.
Yeah.
Hopefully,
Yeah. So, yeah. And we have, it's a dual energy. So you have a lot of flexibility with how you can treat. So it's our first new product as a combined company that's coming out.
Yeah.
And we're very, very excited about that.
That's awesome. Congrats on that. And that should be coming out. Like, are you saying this year probably? Okay, awesome.
Yep. It's between, June and August. You'll see that, right? We'll start in Canada, and then we should see that coming into the US.
That's exciting. Good job. All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'll give you last words. Anything else you'd like to add, or if folks have, want to reach out? I know you guys are easy to find. Cynosure Lutronic. You've got a big website, a big presence. You guys are at all the events. But I appreciate all of your forthrightness and what the advice you've given. I think people are going to find it very helpful. Anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Sure. Yeah, I have a thought and then a question for you, if you don't mind, Alex.
Of course. Yeah, let's do it.
The thought is we genuinely, authentically want to be partner of choice. We understand the history of this category. Mm-hmm. We understand, there's been really amazing moments with amazing technology and not so great moments and behaviors of energy-based device companies. And we really want to be a partner of choice. We want to be the partner that walks in the door, finds out who is this practice, what do you want to be? We want to be the best clinical training, the best service team. So we really look forward to being able to partner with all the new med spas forming, the existing med spas out there. And if there's any issues, customers can reach out to me. They can reach out to Nadav, who's our CEO, and we will get on it. Right. That's awesome. So that's our commitment is if we want to really differentiate ourselves by delivering on what we've said. And I guess a question for you, Alex, just maybe a little bit of a fun question. And this isn't an original one. I think it's sort of a Peter Thiel question, but you've seen this industry for some time now. Is there something about this industry where you have a belief that maybe most people wouldn't agree with you? But if you're right, it could be a really important insight that a lot of folks are missing.
Oh boy, I'm gonna have to think about that one. I'm gonna blog about that and maybe do it's a good question. I don't know that it's something that people would be missing. I think so there'd be two things that I would mention. One is positive and one is more kind of the warning side. And the positive is that, when I look at this industry, and this is very much what you just said, when I look at this industry and where we are as far as technology and where we are as far as the population, like there's nobody who doesn't want to look and feel younger. That's like not going to go away. And until we're able to fully and finally reverse the aging process, which
Yeah.
maybe we're within, 100 years of that, who knows? But until that happens, um, these treatments are going to be there. And when you look at the age at which patients are starting these treatments, my point is always just like, what is it going to look like when those 25-year-olds are 35 and 45? It's this, by virtue of the aging population, there's no way that this industry can't grow, by leaps and bounds. But I guess the other thing to counter that would just be, and this is very much what you said as well, is that, the only thing that is going to stop this is ourselves. And that, like, if we don't, and this is the thing that I've been ever, I mean, I'm a lawyer as my background, I've been saying this for 15 years now in this industry, is that we've got to, folks need to start being a little more responsible, and taking more responsibility for their industry, not just for themselves and for their, their little ecosystem on their block or their state or whatever it is, but for their industry. Because what happens in South Texas affects us in Portland, and what happens in, Chicago affects what happens in Miami, and it just does. And so we've all got to start being a little more responsible. And I think if we don't do that, it could be impactful. And if we don't do it, someone else is going to do it for us, and
Yep.
it's not going to be, what we're looking for in the end. Those are the two things. I mean, I'm incredibly bullish and positive, but I also want folks to be like, you guys, we've got to, like, the only thing that's going to stop us is is ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the point you made around nothing's isolated anymore on social media, news in
Right.
South Texas can get to Portland in 5
Well, and it
seconds, right?
does.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that they don't, you like your treatments, you're not going to get a news report on a great laser hair removal treatment, like you're not going to get coverage of that. You are going to get it if someone gets burned.
Yep.
And that's the thing. So, I'm curious, what, right back at you. It's a good question. What do
Um,
you know about the industry that would be impactful?
so I would say that I think GLP-1s, it's a finer point on a tidal wave we all see, which
Yeah.
is GLP-1s is going to be like, electric cars, and that it's going to spawn all kinds of industries around it, right? So with EVs come like all these charging stations and the new,
Yeah.
food stores sitting next to them and all that. And with GLP-1s, it's going to spawn a whole bunch of other businesses, and it'll be muscle toning, it'll be loose skin, it'll be those things, but there'll be other things we don't even know yet.
Yeah.
And so I think a way to
For
think
sure.
about building a GLP-1 practice is looking at all of the other ancillary consumer needs that come out of that, and
Yep.
building a business model around meeting those. Because I think once you shed the pounds, that's just the beginning of a whole different journey. So
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. I do think that specializing in men, which is very small niche, right, at 11%, specializing in men could be a very high profit, rewarding business if it's done right and really
Mhm.
specialized. And at regenerative medicine, I think the
Yeah. That's
science
huge.
isn't there where we need it to be on exosomes and peptides, and I think we need to be cautiously optimistic about that.
Yep.
But I think there's going to be a slew of clinical research that's going to show things like lasers are the original regenerative medicine. It's,
Mhm.
sort of the organic way to get that cell rejuvenating itself.
Yeah.
And I think the science around that for us as an industry, speaking purely for the energy-based device, is really important to show cellularly how it is not only just stopping the aging process, but in some cases even being able to age backwards.
Yeah.
Those are a couple different hypotheses, but like you, I should probably think about it more.
No, I think you're dead. dead on with, especially with the last one with the, regenerative medicine. That was a huge topic that we discussed recently at MedSpa show, and that in combination with the GLP-1s too. And now folks are doing, it's both, because that helps rebuild a lot of the mass, and as you lose mass and you lose fat, you don't look like you did when you were 20, and so it really is this whole new thing. And I think we're just breaking the surface of what that's going to look like. So you're right. I think that's a really good, it's a really exciting area. I do think we need a lot more research trials, clinical trials, and we all need to be, we need to move forward with excitement, but we need to be, cautious as well, because it's another area where, things can happen quickly, good or bad.
Yeah. Well said. Thank you, Alex. I appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Thank you to producers Madeline Mahler, marketing content coordinator who organizes, schedules, and handles our guests, provides topics, talking points, and guest bios to our hosts. And myself, Jody Guzman, technology operations assistant manager. I handle the audio video editing, voiceovers, and tech. Kate Harper, senior digital marketing coordinator who makes all of our graphics and manages the podcast platform. Esme Uriostegui, senior social media coordinator, who makes and posts all the clips of the podcast to our social feeds. Our music is by Ghost Score. Thank you for listening to or watching the Medical Spa Insider podcast. Please follow or subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for future episodes. For more information about the American Med Spa Association, please check our show notes or in the description below.